Hello and how you doing, and welcome back to both Two Jagoffs and Steel City Commuters. I am Austin Cairns, joined here with
Downtown Nick Brown.
And welcome back to the podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, it is another crossover special, and we are bringing on a very special guest this week. He is a Point Park University favorite. He is the Vice President of Institutional Advancement and Strategy right here at Point Park University. Please welcome the one and only Ted Black to the podcast. Ted, it's good to see you.
Thank you. It's great to see you guys, and love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I get the title correct? No?
For the edit, well, it's senior vice president. That just means I have a lot of gray hair.
See, okay. No, that just means you're more experienced.
Yeah, or that or I'm ready for a home, to be institutionalized in a home.
No, never.
I go to the home for senior vice presidents.
No, not that at all. Don't get on yourself like that. But we do appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I was looking up your history before we recorded today, and my goodness, you've been involved in a lot of stuff, and we're going to talk about that today. But I want to start things off with Point Park University. Obviously, I'm a senior here. Nick is a sophomore here. Do you mind telling me about what brought you to Point Park?
Yeah, that's a great question. Three things I would say. One, Pittsburgh's home. And you alluded to in the introduction that we've done a lot of different things and in different places, and we had been gone for the better part of 12 years. And so the opportunity to come back home was very exciting. Pittsburgh's one of my favorite cities anywhere in the world. And that's one. And the other is I'd never worked in higher ed, and I've done different things, and some of my life has been working in as a disruptor in different industries and thinking ways to reinvent different companies and different genres. So that was two, kind of the thrill of learning something new, of getting thrown into something that you really don't know how it operates and how to do it maybe with a different twist based on my background, and to reinvent higher ed. And then the third one is personal. President Bursalis and I, and my wife and I, the three of us have known each other since we were freshmen in college, and we've remained friends. And obviously my wife went from girlfriend to fiance to wife. And but the opportunity to work with Chris day to day, we've done some projects together throughout our lives, was very, very appealing. So I was really, that's kind of the hat trick for me. Of what brought me back to Point Park and to Pittsburgh.
Now, being a part of Point Park University, I can only imagine you've been a part of so many different projects. You've done a lot of different stuff to help out students, to help out the next generation. Is there a personal project that maybe you've been a part of or you got to work on that you're the most proud of?
In my career?
Within Point Park.
Within Point Park, I think one of us is, quite frankly, was just announced a couple hours ago, and that's that we've executed a letter of intent with the goal of acquiring the YWCA building.
Great.
And so I would think the way to best impact students are, the quality of life of your dormitories, the quality of life of having a student center, the quality of life of taking a vacant building that's blighted and bringing it back to life and providing that kind of activity and security. So that's kind of things I'm going to be proud of, but I'm proud of where we are. We again, today is the first step of a 10,000 step journey, but that's, it's a pretty big deal. And it's something that the incoming mayor, the county executive, Secretary Seiger was on campus today, the governor. There's a lot of folks that are really, really important that understand and appreciate what we're trying to accomplish here.
Can you talk, Ted, a little bit about this building and what the future plans are? I get dorms, but are we trying to make it more accessible for students, more accessible, I think, to enjoy the campus?
Well, the good news is I don't know.
That's fine.
and by what I mean by that is we have an opportunity to create. We have an opportunity to engage and to talk to stakeholders and find out what is wanted. The worst thing you could do is for me to have an answer like that and say,
Right.
Here's what it's going to be, and that's that. You'll like it, as opposed to no. I don't know what you guys like to do for free time or spare time. It's a unique building. If it was repurposed, there's a full court basketball court under street level.
Is there?
There's a pool down there. Now I don't think we're going to, I don't think we'll come back as a pool or we'll have a swim team. but it just gives you a sense of the amount of space. But the long-winded answer of saying we want to hear from students, we want to hear from faculty, we want to hear from other stakeholders downtown, we want to hear from political leaders, civic leaders, the philanthropic community. You know, we're in here in Bill Benter's building, who's very much cares about downtown. So we want to hear from those folks as to what functions and what design elements and what programming is going to make the most sense.
That's really neat because I'm only a sophomore, so, passing by that building, it's just been empty. And I've always questioned, what's this going to become? And so once President Brusalis came out with this announcement, that really got me thinking of maybe a new type of lounge for students, just a new recreational space. Can you kind of speak to your role at Point Park as senior vice president and some of the day-to-day operations that you focus on?
Sure. So, as Austin came really close to getting my title.
So close.
So very, it was just this much. Joking. So there's two sections to it. One, institutional advancement. What's that? That's fundraising, raising money for the university. That's just a fancy word for advancement's just a fancy word for that. And then, and strategy. The and strategy piece of it is where I plug into things like this. How can we put together transactions? How can we engage the government? How can we engage the foundation community? How do we create the strategy around some of these growth opportunities? And that's something that Chris and I do very well together. And the fundraising, I have been involved with selling things, selling sponsorships, whether it's sports or media, raising money. I worked at a nonprofit before this, so going to the foundation community, going to donors, are things I've done in the past. But that's kind of the yin and the yang of what I do is, I guess you think of it as raising money to spend money, but raising money to execute on some of the strategy and helping to come up with a strategy. This is the first time I've ever been in higher ed, so everything is a little bit fresh to me, but I've done some stuff in my life, and I try to kind of apply those types of thinking to, like a fresh approach.
Okay. Can you speak to the fundraising aspect? Because I think Day of Giving was the best part this year. Kudos to Austin, $354,000 raised, and we'll get to Two Jagoffs Live in a minute. But just want to talk about that fundraising part, because that's the money that gives back to students. Can you kind of speak to in large of how that's helped students over the past few years? For sure.
And those are, the Day of Giving is a great example of that, because when the schools are raising their money, athletics, I think ballroom dancing raised like $12,000 or $13,000. That's money that they get to put in for programs that they want. That doesn't go into some other mysterious fund and they've got to try and claw it back. So a lot of the schools, when you saw those results, that's money that's going to go toward I think the School of Education had a trip they wanted to take to D.C. and to send folks to different seminars. So that's where it really impacts the students. And I think every one of those schools and departments were at or significantly above what they raised last year. And I also want to, as you guys get older and become very successful and think about ways to give back, I want to set an example for you. Our board chair, Lisa Civic, she issued two challenges. One was to the board, hey, I'll match, if you give a certain amount, I'll match that. But the ones that I think were really, really impactful, she took $50,000 and said, I'm going to pick 10 of the school/activities like athletics and the Center for Civic and Community Engagement. And for the first $5,000 that you raise, I'm going to match dollar for dollar. So she was able to really excite that and bring energy around that. And that's, again, when you guys are rich and
that's the hope.
Yes, that's the hope.
No, that's not the hope. That's not the hope. And you think about how to give back and how make an impact. That was a really impactful gesture by Lisa Civic, and she's just a wonderful person.
Wow, what an incredible opportunity.
Ted, I think this is the perfect time. I still got one of these Two Jagoffs flyers because it was a memorable event. Can you speak to your part of being at Two Jagoffs Live? It ended off with a bang, Austin going through a table, something nobody expected. Can you kind of speak to what that meant for the university as it was its first ever live podcast?
Yeah, I think it was successful before you even turned on the microphone, because the fact that you guys were willing to do it, there's an old saying, you support that which you help to create. No one that was very organic, and you guys put it together. So I didn't do anything other than to say, that's an awesome idea. What do we need to do to make it happen? You guys did it all, and you created that. And what we're trying to do here also is to create this new traditions and a culture of philanthropy. And how do you get involved with your school? And I can tell you both, everyone in the cabinet, everyone in the administration saw what you did and are really, really impressed. I'm really impressed. So I think you guys did it for your university. I know it wasn't the reason, but you did it for yourselves too. When I'm old, so I call, that's your reputation. You're cultivating your brand. Brand and reputation are really interchangeable. And what you guys did for that gave you an opportunity to give back to your university your talents. There's talent, there's treasure, and there's time. Those are 3 T's that you can give back to any organization. And you gave a lot of your time and your talent. We appreciate that.
I greatly appreciate those kind words too. And I mean, the whole planning process, like we talked about on this podcast for quite some time, it was a 6-month planning process
that's
just
amazing.
to make that happen.
That's amazing. And and those are skills that you're going to look back on and say, well, how did we do? Well, I honed those skills when I was in college.
Mm-hmm. And here's where I got the idea from. I don't even know if I told you this, Ted. Pat McAfee, when he did his Big Night Out show many months ago back here at PPG Paints Arena, I saw that and I'm like, it would be cool if I did that for 2 Jagoffs to raise money. Maybe raise money for like a charity downtown, like a nonprofit. Nick and I were looking into different stuff in the city and nothing really met our match. And then when they approached me on the idea of being MC for Day of Giving and do you think of any cool events we could put on, I was like, boom, I already have this idea on the back burner. Let's do it. Let's execute it. I laid out everything. I will say I didn't appreciate Andrew Powell's put me through a table at the end of the show.
You took it like a man.
I did take it like a man. I mean, I kind of was asking for it, but I mean.
And I spent some time up in Buffalo, and I think you got some table smashing skills.
You think so?
Yeah,
you think the wrestling background started the show? Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't light yourself on fire or anything like that.
No. This ain't GCW. I'm good. But yeah, no, it was a great event, and I was very happy to be a part of it. And I'm very blessed that the university even allowed me to put my kind of platform out there. 2 Jagoffs, partnering with Point Park. I mean, that's a lot of pressure right there for a student himself.
You didn't. It didn't show. You did a fantastic job.
Is that something that the university is looking to furthermore expand? Is more live events just like that to get students involved? Because I got to be honest, Ted, that room was a good amount of people, but there was a section in the back that were freshmen. Getting freshman interests this time of year.
That's a good point.
When you're getting yourself to the end of the semester, your first college semester, and you get freshmen at some kind of event. Because when I was a freshman, I was laid back.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to events. I didn't want to put myself out there until I really met Austin. And that's how you start creating your brand. What does that kind of set for future freshman classes?
Well, again, it's you guys doing it. It's not going to be cool if I say, okay, everyone has to show up. We can provide food and cheese and whatever, but the fact that you're leading your peers, that's a big deal. And those, you were a freshman one year, and you reflect on that you didn't have those opportunities, but you're creating those. And again, it goes back to what I said is, you're helping to create these traditions. And I think that that podcast, the concept of podcast, will continue. I think it's a great idea. And what a great legacy that'll be for you guys when you look back and you'll be guests on something that you started for Day of Giving.
That would be incredible. That would be a dream come true. But this is a good point that you actually bring up is about connections. And this is something it's a common theme we've had with other guests. President Brusalis talked about it, Dean Palo, Sherry Payne. And that is making the connections that you need to make. Obviously, you've been in the industry for quite some time, especially within sports, so you probably understand this better than anybody. To be able to make it somewhere, to be able to actually get a job, you got to be able to know someone within the business. You got to have a good connection, a good reputation. Do you mind speaking on maybe some of the connections that you made early on?
I think I might have commented on one of your LinkedIn posts that the key to life is showing up, and you guys are showing up. You're doing stuff, and you don't know where that connection is going to be. That's the other thing. It'll make sense to you when you're looking back 5 years, 10 years, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's why I am here today, or, that's why. Of course, I met my wife because I turned left instead of turning right. So a lot of those connections, you have to show up. Freshman year, you didn't make that many connections because you weren't showing up. So now you're making these connections because you're showing up. That's the number one rule. And there's also a saying, it's not what you know, it's not full. It's people say it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's not correct. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
I like
and who knows you is a key to life as well. So I'll tell you a quick story. How, I practiced law for about 10 years. I got invited, my wife and I got invited to a Christmas party, and I met this couple, and my wife and I started talking to them. And the other thing I always tell people too is meet somebody, talk to them, and ask them what they're working on or what's their biggest challenge right now. And so, as part of the conversation, hey, Ken, what are you working on, and what are your biggest challenges? And he said, I'm doing some consulting work for a basketball league. It never ended up going anywhere. And I said, well, what's the challenge of this basketball league? And he said, well, we wanted to have a North American footprint. Right now we have a couple cities in the United States, but we really want something in Monterrey, Mexico. And I probably had a few glasses of wine, and I was like, well, I have a buddy that works in Mexico City. And I probably should have studied a map in college or in law school instead of law, because if this is Mexico City's here, Monterrey is all the way at the top. But I had a friend that was working there, and the next day I was like, hey, I met this guy. He's trying to get connected with whoever owns an arena in Monterrey, Mexico. And my buddy knew him. Like, it's probably a 10-hour drive away from where he was, and he knew them. And I called the guy up and said, hey, Ken, if you're still trying to meet those folks in Monterrey, Mexico that own the arena, my buddy actually knows them. Set up the meeting. Didn't really hear back from Ken. Was still practicing law. I got another call one day from Ken. And he said, hey, I need a favor. And I said, yeah, what do you need? And he said, I'm trying to meet these guys that own these hockey rinks around Pittsburgh. I don't even think they exist anymore. They were called Blade Runners before. And I was like, yeah, I know those guys. They're clients of our law firm. I'm happy to set up a meeting. Yada, yada. And I never asked for anything in return either. That's the other thing, is do favors for people. And if it comes back to you, so be it. 6 months later, I opened up the newspaper, and Ken Sawyer named president of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Wow.
And I called my buddy that had invited me to the Christmas party and said, hey, tell Ken, congratulations. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I can get some legal work out of the Penguins. And he said, well, you might want to call him yourself, because I just hung up the phone with him, and they got rid of their general counsel today, and he was asking if it was something to be interested in doing.
And is that what
That was the door. That's the door that opened up.
And that's probably a perfect transition then into your time with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Do you mind speaking about now you got this opportunity, you're stepping foot into the door. What was that experience like?
It was surreal. It was an interesting time, because I came in with the group after the bankruptcy. So you're talking 1999, when Mario acquired the team. And it was surreal. That Mario was showing up for work every day. He had an office, 2 offices down from me, and it was just sort of the how the hell did I get here type of moment. It was a fun time. So I was with the Penguins for about 8.5, 9 years. When Mario came out of retirement, that was really, really special to know that months before the rest of the world knew it was going to happen, and then for him to come back and play at the level he did, and other people have said this, and I'll repeat it, is Mario is a better person than he ever was a hockey player. He's just a supremely wonderful person, and it was really great to be around him for that time.
And not only did you spend time with the Pittsburgh Penguins, you also spent time as the president with the Buffalo Sabres. Do you mind speaking about that experience, because that's pretty darn cool, actually?
Yeah. So when I left the Penguins, actually, so one of the things I did at the Penguins, I'll get to your question in a sec, is I really got to know a lot of our media deals, worked with the league on that, worked with what was then Fox Sports Pittsburgh. And because of developing those relationships and expertise, somebody, a woman that was general counsel at Fox Sports had reached out to me about potential opportunity to go to run FSN Pittsburgh, which I did that. So I left the Penguins in 2008, ran the TV station, which I don't even know what it's called now. It was Root, and then it was AT&T Sportsnet, and now I guess it's the Penguins and the Pirates Sportsnet. And then when I left there, the opportunity, I ended up meeting somebody who was doing a lot of work with Terry Pagula, who had just sold a big chunk of his oil and gas interests and wanted to buy the Buffalo Sabres. And, there was ups and downs with the Penguins, and the team was for sale, especially pre-Crosby a couple times. And so I was familiar with putting together those transactions. And when I met Pagula, he needed somebody to help him navigate the sale process of acquiring the Sabres. I was able to do that, put together the different teams, the forensic accounting teams, the legal teams. And then when as that transaction was about to close, he offered me the position to become the president of the Sabres.
Wow. Can you talk to about Fox Sports, what it was originally and how that has been transitioned now from your time? Because I think that's very important, especially being a Pittsburgher and all the local sports and just the transition that is made and the impact that you see from where it was when you were involved to where it is now.
Yeah, the TV business for cable was I'm a pretty simple person. I can distill things to how does it run, and it was it's a complex business, but it was simple in what the drivers were of the business. It's subscription based. So then, and that model has blown up because of streaming and everything else. But then it was if you had Comcast, in order to get the station, FSN Pittsburgh, your cable bill would reflect, and I'm just going to make up numbers, $5 a month you would be paying to the Comcast, which would be paying that money to FSN Pittsburgh. So about 85% of the TV station, I'm talking about the RSN Sports Network, regional sports network, about 85% of the revenue came from doing a deal with Comcast. And if you're a Comcast subscriber, $5 per month per you as a sub would be going to pay what the fee was that Comcast would have to pay for the right to have the signal on the air. That's why you see these things about, there's a blackout and call your cable company today. Basically, call your cable company so that they can charge you more money.
Yes.
And then about 15% of the revenue came from the advertising that you would see, Jeep, Coors, etc. On the expense side, and these numbers are rough, but on the expense side, about 85% of your expenses was what you had to pay the teams for the right to telecast. So for FSN Pittsburgh, and again, I'm making up a number, $10 million for a year, and it would go up, and that gives you the right to be the exclusive telecaster for the Penguins. Pirates, again, making up a number, $20 million. So that's and those are fixed costs. You do a contract, and they're generally 10, 15 year long. There's nothing you can do. If the team's good, you're still paying the same amount. If they stink, you're paying the same amount to the teams. And then roughly 15% of your expenses were the cost to put a game on the air, or your overhead, what you're paying your employees, and things like that. So if you kind of look at it in those terms, very, very simple business within a very complex ecosystem. What was happening then, and it continued, is every year you'd lose subscribers. You guys probably don't have cable, I'm guessing.
Nope.
I do.
He has cable.
So,
I just got rid of cable recently.
Yeah. So you don't have cable. So under that old model, none of that, you're not paying anything that's finding its way to Comcast, to the team. So the subscribers, it was just a slow bleed of attrition. And you would look at a chart and say, well, what's going to happen here? And on the flip side, the rights fees just would keep going up and up and up. And when I was there, they weren't extraordinary like they became. Like, the Dodgers was like $1 billion a year. It's crazy. And so at some point you hit that inflection where the revenues are going down, the costs are going up. And that's what happened a couple of years ago is RSNs just went out of business. I think the AT&T Sportsnet, basically it was, we're just going to give you our free cash flow, but we can't afford to pay you what we had agreed to pay. And then ultimately that iteration went out of business, and now it's really owned by the Pirates and the Penguins.
I mean, do you worry that streaming is overtaking this platform and just the amount of cash flow, the amount of, liquidity that these businesses, they're not going to be able to sustain these. I mean, everybody is moving to these subscription-based. We see it every year with the NFL going with Netflix, and you see MLB going with this certain station. That's really jeopardizing the older folks that don't have the streaming services and that rely on cable. What do you tell media companies, tell media professionals, you tell these businesses, we can't sustain this?
Well, you mentioned the NFL. It hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, and they're able to slice and dice. This game is exclusively on Prime. This game's exclusively on Netflix, and the amount of revenue that they're bringing in is extraordinary. And people are finding a way to pay and to watch. What's interesting based on my background is what has happened with the regional games. NFL's a little easier because there's only 17 games.
Yes.
So, and people are willing to pay for that for their team. It's a really tough proposition to pay 164 for 164 Pirates games or any games.
Right.
We're not picking on the Pirates. But even if the team is, won consecutive World Series, that's a lot to want to consume. So what's happening with those rights? I think you're starting to see that the leagues are taking over those regional sports network rights, and they're going to find a way to bundle it. The NBA is doing it. NHL. The NHL is just a little bit more of a challenge because it's not as wildly popular as the other sports. And so, the consumers are finding a way to do it. They're finding a way to charge you for this, charge you for that. I don't know when the bubble bursts for the NFL. It hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, though.
And I was one of those people that was always so against the streaming services. I was always old school. I'm like, give me my cable. I like my DVR. I like my on-demand system. And recently, my parents were actually the ones of all people to convince me, hey, listen, it's going to be so much cheaper if we just ditch the cable system and we go with the streaming. And I was so against it. And I'm a big wrestling fan. You know that. So WWE, they made the jump to Netflix earlier this year. And I was like, well, there goes Monday Night Raws. So I finally gave Netflix a chance. And as someone who was so much against this, I've got to say, I'm actually digging the whole streaming service. But again, you bring up a good point with the Pirates and Penguins and NBA. There is so many games this season with them. It's 82, 81, 160. So those games, I can understand why paying so much. But I'm not going to lie. I think streaming services is the future.
100%. 100%. It just makes it really hard because the old way that I described earlier is easy. You were if you had cable, you were whether you turned on your TV or not that month, you're still paying your cable bill.
Which is ridiculous.
Now it's more a la carte. I went Netflix, and maybe I'll cancel, and then I'll come back. Maybe I'll get Prime, and then because I want to watch the game, and then I'll cancel before the next subscription. I think the consumer wins across the board, because the old model you weren't allowed to stream anything. In fact, it was in the contract. The streaming rights belonged to the station, and the station at that time didn't release them. So it kind of kept it guarded for as long as it could. And then, the amount of money that was able to be generated locally, I'm sure that the Pirates and the Penguins are not even close to making up what they used to get in terms of a rights fee from the station, from AT&T Sportsnet, because they got to go out and do it on their own, and not everyone wants to pay $5 a month. That just because you have cable, it had nothing to do with watching it.
Yeah,
you were getting dinged that amount every month, so it becomes really challenging. It's interesting. Again, it's one of those things I talked about earlier. Parachute into industries. It's interesting to learn it, and you take some of that knowledge with you. It would be a really wild time now to be trying to navigate all of this. I think it's gravitating more toward a centralized model that the leagues control these rights, and whether they do one-offs with Netflix or other distributors like that. I think that's what you're seeing.
And it's something you kind of just have to adapt on the fly with, essentially. Now, you've probably worked with so many different media professionals out there. You've worked with politicians with your current career with Point Park University. And as someone who's interviewed politicians, interviewed broadcasters, athletes, students, I got to ask, what is your approach like when you're meeting with a lot of these different people? And this is more for the listeners, because I know there's a lot of students that like to listen to these kind of podcasts to get some advice from someone like you. So if a student is listening to this, what piece of advice would you share on how you would approach some of these people?
Even uncommon people have common problems. Extraordinarily rich people can have extraordinarily ordinary problems. I think finding that, I like watching documentaries about famous people, and in it they all have crap in their lives.
You talking about like the old history documentaries?
Whether it's history or whether it's
Yeah.
whether it's a famous musician or a famous athlete, they are people. They can do extraordinary things. But I think if you're interviewing somebody, find those things that can resonate most with your listeners. Again, not to name drop, but I really enjoyed getting to know Mario when I worked there. And I would talk to Mario because we have a couple kids that were about the same age then. When did your kids stop believing in Santa Claus? If you're listening out there and you're young, Santa is real. So Dean Palo, Santa's real. I don't want to burst your bubble. But things like that, that's interesting. And again, that as a parent of a certain age, that's going to connect with anyone. When did you first give your kids the sex talk? You know,
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
that's an interesting thing that as a parent, when I had to do that, I don't want to go too down those rabbit hole, but it was a nervous thing to do. I was like, wow, I have to talk to my son or my daughter about this. How do I do it? That's a common human thread. So find the human element to this that we all do share, and it might be things like that or other things. The superficial is what were you thinking when somebody threw the pitch to you and you hit the ball? That doesn't resonate with people that much.
Yeah, exactly. That's just a
Find
memory.
it's just it's superficial. It's like the Chris Farley show. It wasn't that neat.
Something that I like to tell a lot of our guests too is the way that I treat the podcast, and you've probably listened, and of course you being on it now, you can see it firsthand. As controversial as he is, somebody that I actually respect a lot is Joe Rogan and the way that he approaches his interviews, because he doesn't have pen and paper in front of him. He's not on a computer trying to get notes or behind the scene in scoop of who you are and what your background is. He's having a conversation. He's looking at you in the eyes, asking you about what you do, telling you about what he does, and then from there you build a conversation on it. And I feel like that's how you get the most natural.
100%.
That's how you get the most natural out of
100%.
people. Now, somebody that you worked with really closely that I want to talk about is President Chris Salas. That's someone you've worked with
I don't want to
closely
talk about
here.
him at all.
You don't want to talk about him at all? Oh, don't worry. This next question is going to be a fun one. Tell us something about President Chris Salas maybe we don't know as students. Because here's the thing. I'm a senior. Nick is a sophomore. We both spoke with Salas. He sat in that exact same chair you have.
We both had lunch with him. That's the thing about us, Ted, is we actually want to make the connections and we actually want to have lunch. And I'll be reaching out soon. Can we go grab some lunch soon?
Yeah. But no, we do grab lunch and we do speak with these people. But a lot of the people see the suit on, they see the professional side of President Chris Salas. You've seen the personal side. Maybe share a funny story. It doesn't have to be anything like that's going to get you guys in trouble, but
Oh, it could.
it could. Oh, okay. Why not?
Okay.
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
I think something that somebody wouldn't know, and he knows that if he was sitting in the room, he'd probably know what I'm about to say, is people get nicknames for the goofiest thing. I call Chris Batman from time to time, and it's because, and I have a picture somewhere on my phone, when we were probably sophomores or juniors, our fraternity would have just an epic Halloween party. And he went as Batman one year, and it was like a homemade suit. He bought a mask, cut it in half, did the tights and the whole thing, and he was Batman. So ever since then so if you see him, just say
Batman.
Hey, Batman.
He will be definitely blowing up your phone afterwards after we say
That's
that.
a good one.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I think you were hinting at that at Two Jagoffs Live a little bit, and he wasn't breaking.
No, he said, go ahead and ask me.
He was an open book. And you know what, in all seriousness, that's something I really respect about you and President Chris Salas, because there's too many people that just come in with the suit and they want to be total professionals. And I'm all
Oh, I'm not professional at all, so no worries there.
I love the wearing the suit and being all professional, but I love the people that you can actually like be personal with and be personable about, talk about family, talk about life. And when I transferred in last year, I don't know if you know my background or not, I went to CCAC my first 2 years to get my prereqs. And then I transferred into Point Park for two reasons. A, to save money, and B, because I had Point Park on the bulletin board as the place I wanted to go. And my first day here, I had no friends, no connections. I knew nobody. And President Chris Salas and Dean Paler were the first two, I guess, that work here that I spoke with. And they gave me that welcoming environment. They gave me that welcome to Point Park. They wanted to get to know me and my family. Not necessarily, oh, what classes you want to take? What is your GPA? What's your career goals? They wanted to know, oh, so how many siblings do you have?
Yep.
you're a dog person. I have a dog too. Let me show you a picture. And that right there immediately like, okay, this is a place that I can feel welcome. This is a place I can be myself. And I met someone like Nick Brown along the way. I brought my friend Lucas Coons. He's now a freshman here. So that's what I love so much about Point Park. It's so welcoming.
And again, that's a common experience. All of, anyone who went to college, you're lucky if you knew a couple people, but you have to go out there and meet people, and so it's a very common experience.
What do you tell, Ted, to the freshmen, to the sophomores, the people that want to get out in the media industry and want to get out into the industry that they want to go to? Is it about making the, not to say connections, but actually showing up? There's a lot of freshmen that this time of year, even my age, this time of year, people don't want to show up. How do you get them to show up? How do you get people to actually participate in activities? How do you get people to actually put themselves out there?
I'll go back. I'm not as student facing as obviously Dean Palo or Chris. So I appreciate this interaction with you guys. I think a lot of that is peers. If I walked up to somebody and started talking to them and said, I think you need to start doing a podcast, they'd probably be like, hey, stranger danger. I don't know but I think encouraging your peers and building that culture and reaching back and paying, that's your way of paying this forward too, is to, reach back to your past self that I wasn't that engaged. And there are opportunities here. And, they say that a lot of kids will drop out of college because they don't want to go and sit by themselves in the cafeteria, and they just don't want to be identified as not having a friend to sit in the cafeteria. Well, we've all been there. We've all had to do that, whether it's a new job. I've been the new kid in the cafeteria for 3 or 4 jobs, even really high-profile jobs. Everyone has that experience, and so you kind of have to lean in on it. And you're not going to always be in your comfort zone. In fact, if you're in your comfort zone all the time, you're really not going to be growing at all.
I think something, too, that I have to give kudos to you, President Purcell, Sherry Payne, that even professors, too, when they see you in the hallway, they actually acknowledge you, and you actually get to see them. In other universities, bigger and smaller ones, they don't want to have anything to do with students, and I think that's a big outstanding for Point Park, is you actually want to engage with the students, and you want to actually put themselves out there and help them. And I think the Career Readiness Center is also a big part. I don't know any other college that has that. Is the Career Readiness Center, get your resume. You can make them primetime connections. Is that all about internships too, is getting that experience? Would you recommend?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, Point Park, especially right now, we've got such a great reputation because of all the cool stuff that's happening. All the cool stuff that you guys do, the cool stuff that the other students are doing at the university. We're really in the media quite a bit, so it's a great time to have Point Park on your resume. Because I'm sure somebody will say, oh yeah, I just read about the YWCA building. That's really exciting. But I think, again, making the connections, leaning in on what the university has to offer, any university, but ours in particular really leans in on the experiential learning. And the faculty that we have that have worked in industry, they're here. You just have to raise your hand.
I want to ask, because this is a big one, the NFL draft is coming to Pittsburgh in 2026. What is your job, your role? What is the university doing to prepare to lead up to the draft coming?
I would like to see, our students get as many opportunities as we can. So we've been on a few calls with that, and that's been the number one priority. Is look, if you need kids, I'm sorry to say it that way. People are younger than me or a kid. If you need students, come to us first, because our students are going to be able to walk there. They're not going to worry about transportation. They're going to show up. They're going to work hard. They're gritty. So the number one priority we have, quite frankly, is getting our students as much opportunity and experience around that as possible. And it could be anything. If you're running coffee for somebody, hey, I worked the draft. In terms of the university itself, those are a little harder because the NFL will tell you a community what's going to happen, and that's that. It's not a negotiation or anything like that. And I don't think that has been fully revealed. I know they know what they're going to do. So I don't know that there's as much opportunity, although we have, like I said, we've been on calls, and I think some of the niche opportunities for the university may be, hey, we have 3 TV studios here. We have podcast studios. If the next, and I think the next city is DC that gets the draft, maybe they're sending a contingent up here, and maybe that group needs access to podcasting. So it's kind of not the direct line that you would think
Right.
of, but all the other teams and the league, they know what they're doing. They've done this before. There's a model. There's a recipe. The NFL is very, I don't mean the play, but the show is very scripted. At every stadium that you hear, it's third down. That's the same voice in every stadium. It's not like some unique voice in Pittsburgh. It's very scripted in terms of the run of show. So the opportunities, I think, for the draft, getting back to that, will be what's on the periphery. What's the ecosystem around that ecosystem? And those are things that we'll probably explore, is how can we leverage the assets that the university has.
And I can't wait for the NFL draft to come to Pittsburgh, too. And I told Nick Brown this off camera. If you're a student and you're at Point Park and you have an opportunity to work the draft and you pass on it, you're a fool. Like, that is one of the biggest resume opportunities that you can put on there. I mean, if you're a employer and then you look at a resume and you see they worked the 2026 NFL draft, I'm immediately asking them about that. I'm immediately being like, tell me about this. Tell me more. What did you do? What was your experience like? And that may be a make or break to actually get the job or not get the job. In terms of other sports, though, one last sports-related question before we wrap things up today. You've spent some time in the NHL, obviously, like you mentioned before, working hand-in-hand with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Buffalo Sabres. The Pittsburgh Penguins right now seem to be on the uprise in the city. And we don't have to talk too technical here, but just as a general overview, what's your thoughts on the current state of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, it's interesting because, Sid the Kid is now Sid the middle-aged man. And he certainly plays at a very high level. So it was always interesting because Pittsburgh hockey has been remarkably blessed, especially at the center position, for such a long time. You had Mario, you had Yager, you have Crosby, Malkin, and others in between that even if they were here for a few years. It's remarkable to think that Mario came here in '83. He was teammates with Sid for a year. To have that, almost 40 years of top 10 talent, maybe top 5 talent, is remarkable. So I think the fact that they're starting to transition, when Crosby is gone and Malkin's gone, I would just wonder if the gate attraction is going to be there when they're not winning. Rebuilding a team is really, really hard. No one writes you a love letter when you're going to rebuild a team. The fans aren't going to just show up out of pure loyalty when you have that many games. So my take on it is it's really good, but the question is then, what's going to happen in the next 5 years? What's going to happen with ownership? What's going to happen with how they navigate the economics? I don't know when the next collective bargaining comes up, but that's always something that looms on the horizon as well.
No, it's a great question. I mean, what's going to happen post Letang, post Malkin, post Crosby, new head coach in town? I mean, I feel like the future is bright right now for Pittsburgh, just with the way things are looking so far this season. But I guess the only time will tell. Ted, I do want to say I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on this podcast today. We're going to end things off asking you a fan favorite question. And if you listened before, you probably have an idea of what's coming next. And Nick Brown, since you're actually here, I'm going to give you the ropes to ask this question. You know what it is. It's a fan favorite. We ask every guest that we bring on.
Ted, it's getting close to lunchtime. What's your favorite go-to place to grab a meal?
Favorite restaurants?
Favorite restaurants? I like City Works again, just because it's convenient and close.
One of my favorites.
I just like I like being able to sit out there. I mean, the food's good. It's not exceptional. This sounds so hoity-toity, but the Duquesne Club has really, really good food. They have their Virginia spots and their macaroons are things that I really missed coming back. So what I will do is, and you guys probably have to wear a sports jacket, but I will, as a thank you, I'll invite you to the Duquesne Club for lunch sometime this year.
Oh, I will take
Sweet,
that up.
thank you.
I got a nice sports jacket.
No jeans.
No jeans.
No jeans.
You hear him.
Yeah, no jeans.
No jeans.
You got it.
All right.
I'll be in dress pants
we'll
and the
have
nicest.
spots.
Oh, absolutely. Just let us know when and where. We'll be there.
Right.
What's the go-to at City Works, just out of curiosity?
I usually get like a steak salad.
Steak salad?
Okay.
That's pretty good. I'm a burger guy, so I get the burger.
I'm the chicken tenders and fries guy.
Yeah. Well,
Plain Jane.
I could eat that when I was younger.
I'm about to say, we still eat like we're 8-year-olds. Yes. We still eat like we're 8-year-olds over
No
here.
matter where we go, Ted, it's the same order. I always get the chicken tenders and fries, and he's always gonna get the cheeseburger with fries.
It's an 8-year-old meal.
It is.
Told you. I make fun of it for all the time because I'm like, can you get something else?
Yeah. Have some big boy food.
Yes, it is true.
Well, Ted, we do appreciate you again so much for coming on. We're going to give you the final chance. Do you have any final words you want to leave with us, leave with the audience?
My goodness. That puts the pressure on. No, I really appreciate you guys doing this. I know other cabinet members that have done it. You mentioned Sherry Payne. She loved doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So what you're doing is good for you, good for your careers, and it's also good for Point Park University to have such incredible ambassadors, and keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, you never know when the lucky break comes. You'll only know after the fact, like, oh, I got that lucky break because I busted my rear end doing this podcast for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I randomly ran into somebody. And that's how it'll happen. It will. And it'll happen for both of you. Just keep working your asses off.
We appreciate
you.
that.
Yes.
We will definitely work our asses off. I promise you that. Nick, do you have any final words you want to leave off?
I just want to say thanks for the time. It's always good to talk with high-level cabinet members, but also you're out of your busy day. I know you have a busy schedule, so we just really appreciate the time that you have and everything that you've done for us and for this university, Ted.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you all so much for tuning in as well. We didn't forget about you. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and then there'll be a new episode out this Thursday. Until next time here on Two Jagoffs, I'm Austin Cairns. That's Nicholas Brown. See you all on the next one.
Peace.
To do this.
There you go. Let's do a peace.
Peace.